when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new gods for their future security.
Thomas Jefferson Foundation, welcome to Monticello. Thank you to the Municipal Band of Charlottesville for welcoming us with music, and to the Honorable John Charles Thomas, Emeritus Trustee of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, who for 30 years has opened this ceremony by reciting the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson was only 33 years old when he wrote those immortal words, now among the most famous in the English language. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. It was a radical statement in 1776. It was not at all self-evident. Never before had a nation been born out of ideas rather than force or ethnicity. In a revolutionary separation document, Jefferson embedded fundamental principles of liberty, equality, and self-government, principles that still bind us today as Americans. Jefferson foresaw the impact of these ideas, both at home and abroad. In 1812, he wrote, and I quote, "I firmly believe that the whole world will, sooner or later, benefit from our assertion of the rights of man." Today, more than half of the nations on earth have founding documents inspired by Jefferson's words in our Declaration of Independence. And freedom movements throughout modern history, from women's suffrage to civil rights, have adopted the words of the Declaration as a rallying cry. Each of those movements reminds us that Jefferson's notion of liberty, while visionary for its time, did not extend to all people. Not to African Americans, Native Americans, women, or men without property. Jefferson and the founders failed to resolve the fundamental paradox of slavery in an age of liberty. It would take nearly 200 years, a civil war, and the leadership of countless citizen activists to ensure that all Americans could fully exercise their unalienable rights. And that work continues today with every one of us. This morning, I want to honor every individual who has struggled for freedom in this country, and especially the hundreds of enslaved men, women, and children who lived and worked here and made Monticello possible. The Declaration of Independence is an innately hopeful document. It reflects Jefferson's faith in future generations to protect and improve upon the founding promise of the United States. You heard the Honorable John Charles Thomas read Jefferson's notions about when a people should rise up and improve their government. From the very beginning, ours has been a nation that requires the active and ongoing participation of its citizens. In just a few moments, 67 new citizens from 35 countries will take the oath of American citizenship and begin their journey of participation in our community. This is your day, beginning of your American story. And we could not be more privileged that you're here today to share it with us at Monticello. For the rest of you who are enjoying this event with them, and on behalf of the trustees and staff, and in cooperation with the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, I officially welcome everyone to the 56th Annual Monticello Independence Day celebration. And a warm hello to the thousands who are watching online around the world. I'd like to recognize some special guests who are with us in the audience today. In association with the Presidential Precinct, we are delighted to welcome a group of Mandela Washington Fellows. They are participants in the flagship program of the State Department's Young African Leaders Initiative. These gifted individuals are working within their respective countries to create thriving, just, and free societies. We welcome you. And on a day when we celebrate the true meaning of citizenship, we are truly fortunate to be joined by one of the country's most prominent civic leaders, Andrew Tisch. Mr. Tisch currently serves as co-chairman of the board and chairman of the executive committee of Lowe's Corporation, one of the largest diversified companies in the United States. In addition to active roles in numerous universities and civic organizations, he is vice chairman of the Center for United States Global Leadership and one of the founders of the No Labels Coalition, whose mission is to combat partisan dysfunction in politics. Just yesterday, Andrew and his co-author, Mary Skafidas, who is with us as well, released a book called Journeys, An American Story. It's a new book that they have co-authored on the American immigrant experience. It's a collection of 72 essays from immigrants, all of whom show their resilience and success as they prove the viability of the American experiment. One review of Andrew and Mary's book noted, and I quote, "More than 70 voices combined to create a powerful chorus, singing a hymn of hope and gratitude." We're particularly proud that the book includes a chapter about your ceremony this morning, a chapter about Monticello's annual Independence Day celebration and naturalization ceremony, and also an essay by Benjamin Freeman of Liberia. He is a descendant of Elizabeth Hemings, who was enslaved here at Monticello. We're very fortunate that Mr. Freeman was with us just 2 weeks ago on this very lawn with more than 300 descendants of Monticello's enslaved community. They gathered here to celebrate a reunion and the 25th anniversary of the Getting Word Oral History Project, now the largest oral history archive on slavery outside of the WPA. Of course, the stories in Andrew's and Mary's book have special resonance here at Monticello as we celebrate the 56th Annual Independence Day. The nation's longest continuous naturalization ceremony held outside of a courtroom. Since 1963, over 3,700 people have begun their American journey here at these steps. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the author of Journeys, An American Story, Mr. Andrew Tisch.
Thank you, Leslie. We are here today to celebrate two important moments in history. The first is the birth of our great country, which officially happened 242 years ago. The second will happen in just a few minutes when you 67 people from 35 different countries, become our newest citizens. While each of you took a different journey to get here, before the morning is over, each of you will be able to say, I am an American. And there's no place that I would rather be than here today, celebrating all of you. And no better place to be than the oldest continuous swearing-in ceremony outside any courthouse, almost 56 years. So I'm honored to be the first to welcome you, Nita from Bhutan, and Carla from El Salvador, and Sami from Iraq, and Joseph from Romania, and the rest of you. More than 100 years ago, my grandfather, Avraham Tuchinski, arrived from Ukraine to America on a steamship called the SS Belgravia. He spoke no English. Young Avraham arrived at Ellis Island and took the same oath of citizenship that you will take in just a little while. Avraham and his family moved to Brooklyn, and he studied hard. 14 years later, he attended the City College of New York, where, among other things, he was captain of the basketball team in 1918. When the crowd cheered, it was easier to chant, "Go Tisch," than "Go Tuchinski." Well, the Tisch nickname stuck, and it became our family name. Because Avraham could shoot hoops, I stand before you as Andrew Tisch and not Andrew Tuchinski. We gather at a time when some Americans are questioning the value of immigration and immigrants. This isn't the first time that our nation finds itself at the same crossroads. While America is a nation of immigrants, we have a long and troubling history of barricading the doors to new arrivals. Fortunately, we have an even longer and more glorious history of tearing down those barricades, because the truth is that we need and we want immigrants. You make America bigger. You make America bigger, better, and stronger. Thomas Jefferson, who lived in this great house, once said America was a refuge, a place where those suffering from oppression could participate in the right of self-government. Soon, you too will have that privilege, joining us as citizens, as brothers and sisters, under one flag. Over the last couple of years, I've been keenly focused on the topic of immigration. With my co-worker and friend, Mary Skafidis, who is with us on stage today, we just published a book called Journeys, An American Story. It features a collection of essays on the American immigration experience. It's as diverse as this country. Now, many people refer to our country as a melting pot, a soup of many different ingredients combined and homogenized to create a certain desirable flavor. We see America a little bit differently. We see it as a mosaic with tiles of many different colors, shapes, sizes, and textures. The grout that holds us together is the common desire for freedom, justice, and opportunity. Without this grout, we would be nothing more than a pile of stones. The stories that we share in our book illustrate how immigrants have built and strengthened the culture of our country. Many of our storytellers came here seeking opportunity, some for love, others fleeing violence. We talk about a young man named Ahmed, who told us of escaping Somalia in the early 1990s. His family went from living in a 12-bedroom mansion in Mogadishu to a hovel made of sticks and cloth in a refugee camp. Ahmed's family called him the lucky baby because soon after he was born, his family was sponsored and granted asylum to come to the United States, a privilege his mother considers the greatest day of her life. His arrival in today's America would have been much more difficult, needless to say. Hard work and determination got Ahmed to Cornell University, my alma mater, and today he is at Oxford University studying as a Rhodes Scholar. Then there's Michael Bloomberg, the entrepreneur and former mayor of New York City, whose creativity led to a new way of processing data and information that has transformed the world. Michael traces his ancestors back to the ghettos of Russia. Their towns are listed in the Valley of the Lost Communities at the Holocaust Museum and are remembered because every Jewish person in those towns perished during the horrendous Nazi occupation. For so many, America was the refuge that Thomas Jefferson spoke of when he talked about a beacon of freedom in a sometimes evil world. However, the history of America, our history, is far from perfect. For millions of people over hundreds of years, America represented not a chance for freedom, but an end to it. Our book, as Leslie said, includes a story from Ben Friedman, who traces his ancestry back to Sally Hemings, the slave of Thomas Jefferson, whose life is celebrated here at Monticello. Another essayist, Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey, tells us that as a boy, he came to know his family's journey to this land wasn't in any way similar to the Pilgrims. He knew of no courageous explorers, no people seeking religious freedom, no escape from persecution or famine. His ancestry came from slavery and generations of unimaginable suffering and subjugation. Yet Senator Booker grew up with grandparents and parents who loved this country, who saw connections between their struggles and the heroic aspirations of the early colonists and the freedom fighters, of the abolitionists and suffragettes, as well as the refugees and immigrants who made America march, stumble, stride, and jump forward. The journey to America is only the beginning of the challenge. Once you get here, you have to assimilate, to adjust to what many of you are going to see as a foreign culture, all while finding a way to feed your families and house them, something I'm sure that you can relate to. The same is true for many of our essayists. When U.S. Secretary of Transportation Elaine Chao came from Taiwan to America as a child, she didn't speak a word of English. She would sit in the back of her class and copy everything on the blackboard, even though she had no idea what it said or what the words meant. Each night, her father would translate the day's lessons for her. That's how she learned how to speak English. What Mary and I saw over and over again was the theme of sacrifice, great sacrifice that would seem so difficult for many of us. There were immigrants who themselves would never get to live the American dream, but they made sure that their children and grandchildren, nieces and nephews, had the chance to grasp it. Mary shares the story of her Aunt Lella, who came to America as an undocumented immigrant from Greece in the early 1970s. She lived in the shadows, in fear of deportation for 16 years, until she finally got a green card. She never became a citizen, but Mary calls her an American hero. Aunt Lella worked her entire life in a garment factory, always saving, never spending. And the money that she left allowed Mary and her cousin to graduate from college without any debt. Mary's story might never have been written were it not for her Aunt Lella. I imagine that many of you here today have an Aunt Lella somewhere in your family history, someone who sacrificed and scraped with the hope that newer generations would have the chance to soar and to take advantage of opportunities that they never had. But those people who toiled and struggled for their families did much more than that. Immigrants have literally built America from the ground up, including the railroads and the bridges and the highways and much of the infrastructure that we use today. And beyond the hard labor, there was the brain power to fuel that engine. Consider this: 40% of all Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their children. Companies such as Procter & Gamble, Apple, Pfizer, Tesla, Google, GE, Intel, eBay, IBM. The company that I'm privileged to chair, Lowe's Corporation, traces its history back to 1946. That's when my grandfather, Avraham, you remember him, the basketball player? Well, by then he was known as Al Tisch. And he and my grandmother, Sadie, gave a life-changing loan to my father, Larry, and my uncle, Bob. And with it, my father and uncle purchased a rundown resort in New Jersey called the Laurel and the Pines Hotel. From this one investment, Larry and Bob built a business empire that is today a Fortune 500 company, employing 18,000 people in industries ranging from hotels and hospitality to insurance, to energy, to packaging, with revenues of over $13 billion annually. That opportunity could only happen here. That's the promise. That's the magnificence. That's the glory of America. Immigrants creating economic benefits and leaving their marks on our collective culture through customs, food, language, art, and history. Each new group adding more stones to our national mosaic for future generations to cherish. So to you, soon-to-be citizens in the audience, to you, Edgar from the Philippines, and to you, Mustafa from Jordan, and to you, Angela from Mexico, and Linda from Ghana, let me say to you directly, I am honored that you chose to come to this great country and to be an American. Now, to be a citizen takes responsibility. So I'd like to leave you, I always like to finish with a list of things to do. So I'd like to leave you with a top 10 list of things that I hope you will do as a new American. And it's worthwhile for everybody who's live streaming and who's sitting here in the audience today to pay attention to this list too. Number 1, love your country. Number 2, be an ambassador of goodwill. Tell all your friends and family in the old country about how great America is. Number 3, be a tourist. Monticello is a great place to start, but you should also see the Statue of Liberty and Constitution Hall and the Smithsonian and the Grand Canyon and other historical sites. Get to know America. Number 4, never be afraid to do the right thing. This country is built on a system of checks and balances so that the right prevails. If you believe you are right, our Constitution gives you the ability to prove your case. Number 5, tell your story. Family histories get passed down from generation to generation, so do your part to keep your legacy alive. Number 6, get to know your neighbors. Try to weave yourself into the fabric of your community. Chances are that your neighbor's story is as interesting as yours. Number 7, give back. Join an organization to help make this country even better, whether religious, civic, or philanthropic. Participate. Number 8, make your voice heard. There's nothing more American than joining or fighting for a cause.
300 copies of Journeys, an American Story, to Monticello, and at the conclusion of today's ceremony, each new citizen will receive a copy of their book to take home with them. And now, I extend a warm welcome to the Honorable Michael Urbanski, Chief Judge of the United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia, who will preside over the naturalization ceremony. Judge Urbanski is joined by United States Attorney Thomas Cullen, the Honorable Joel C. Hoppe, and Chief Deputy of the U.S. Marshal Service, Brad Sellers, who will now open the court.
All rise. The Honorable Michael F. Urbanski, Chief Judge for the United States District Court, is presiding. Oyez, oyez, oyez. The United States District Court for the Western District of Virginia is now in session and open for the transaction of business. God save these United States and this honorable court. Please be seated and come to order.
Good morning. It was really nice inside in the air conditioning. In fact, it was fantastic. One of my favorite parts of this program is to hear Justice John Charles Thomas recite the words that Thomas Jefferson used in the Declaration of Independence. Wasn't that spectacular? How about a round of applause to Justice Thomas? I'm going to be very brief because it's very hot. But let me just say a couple things. First, welcome to court this morning. Usually the air conditioner works a little better in court than here, but sometimes it doesn't. Welcome. And I want to extend a particular welcome to the 67 folks we're about to swear in as new citizens from 35 different countries. We are so very, very grateful that you are here with us today. Welcome. I'd like to call upon my friend and the United States Attorney for the Western District of Virginia, Thomas Cullen, to present the applicants for naturalization.
Thank you, Judge Urbanski. It is my honor and privilege to invite the petitioners to join us on the portico steps. Citizenship and Immigration Services, I am pleased to present to the court the following 67 applicants for naturalizations as citizens of these United States. Your Honor, each of these applicants has been found eligible and qualified to become a citizen pursuant to the laws of the United States. I am therefore pleased and privileged to move this honorable court to administer the oath of allegiance and renunciation and deliver their certificates of naturalization.
Thank you, Mr. Cullen, for that motion. The court is pleased and privileged to grant the motion and for naturalization, and the court will now proceed to administer the oath. Before I ask the citizens, our new citizens, to take the oath of naturalization, it's worth noting for just a minute where this oath comes from. And it's worth noting for just a minute the words in this oath. And so I want all of us here, all of you out there sweltering in the sun, all right, to think about the words of this oath as you hear them, because they impose on the new citizens and all of us as citizens really important obligations. And it's really, I think, quite special to think about the words of this oath and to think about where we stand today. Because on December 8th, 1801, at his first annual message to Congress, then President Thomas Jefferson said this: "I cannot omit recommending a revisal of the laws on the subject of naturalization. Before 1801, it took 14 years in the country before you could become naturalized. Thomas Jefferson was proposing that it be reduced from 14 years to 5 years. And one of the things he said to Congress, to really then the State of the Union address, was he talked about this oath. And he said, "But might not the general character and capabilities of a citizen be safely communicated to everyone manifesting a bona fide purpose of embarking his life and fortunes permanently with us?" And that is what these folks are about to do. They are about to communicate to you, to us, to each other, the bona fide purpose of embarking his life and fortune permanently with us. And it's really interesting that a few months later, 5 months later, on April 14th, 1802, Congress, they worked faster then, Congress passed the Naturalization Act of 1802, lowering the years of naturalization from 14 to 5 and requiring the oath. And this is what the statute said. Secondly, that he shall, at the time of his application to be admitted, declare on oath or affirmation before some one of the courts aforesaid that he will support the Constitution of the United States, and that he doth absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to every foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, whatever, and particularly by name the prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, wherefore he was before a citizen or subject. That's what the statute says. When you hear the oath that's just about to be administered to these folks, you will hear that those same words in that statute from 1802, proposed by the guy who lived in this house, Thomas Jefferson, are going to be repeated, and these folks will be asked to swear to that here today. So there is a link, ladies and gentlemen, there is a link between our new citizens and a link between the former occupant of this house, Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence. There is a link in the words they say, in the words he said, that binds us all together. And not only will these folks have said it, but for the last 216 years, every citizen in this country who is naturalized has said the same words. We are bound together. We are linked together as one people. And I just thought this tie with Thomas Jefferson really brings that home and resonates with me. I'd like to call upon my colleague, United States Magistrate Judge Joel Hoppe, to administer the oath of citizenship to our new citizens. Judge Hoppe.
Thank you, Judge Urbanski. I would ask all of the applicants for citizenship to please raise your right hand and repeat the oath of allegiance after me. I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, potentate, state, or sovereignty, of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen, that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will bear arms on behalf of the United States when required by law, that I will perform non-combatant service in the armed forces of the United States when required by law, that I will perform work of national importance under civilian direction when required by law, and that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. So help me God.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for our new citizens? I would like you to, thank you so much. I would like you to, for those of you who are standing, remain standing. And for those of you who are seated, please stand up and place your hand over your heart for the presentation of the colors by the United States Army Continental Color Guard, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right, up.
Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, up.
How about a round of applause for the U.S. Army Continental Color Guard? You know, I'm wearing this robe, but I believe those guys are hotter than me in those wool uniforms. Okay, what I'd like to do now is call upon the United States Attorney for the Western District of Virginia, Thomas Cullen, to call out each petitioner by name, and I will come down with the assistance of some folks, Ms. Bowman, Mr. Tisch, and his co-author, to hand out the certificates of citizenship. Mr. Cullen.
Ita Tamun, Umit Tamun, Wado, Mustafa Ahmud Gay, Angela Torres Magana, Karvanan Theoru Valuvan, Aisatu Kamara, Joseph Kusabra Neji, Ugiri Mana Ashel Iran, Carla Marino, Paula June Clark, Jeremiah Henry Jones, Theophilus J. Carl Anthony Belgrave, Sonia Virginia Belgrave, Bisa Ann Horseman, Jeffrey Andrew Horseman, Fakeha Mohammed Mahfouz Amin, Rafael Busara Vargas, Romeo Sagasume, Lloyd Situ Kali, Sandra Kathleen Carlson, Syed Uzair Hassan, Paulo Sare Lacona, Wei Kong, Angela Folks, Gerald Francis Musaberry, Sohyun Latte, Garrett Van Hoven, Sameh Kadir Mamoun, Tan Nizwa Sami Kader Mamoun, Yan Yuang, Melissa Jane Griffin, Luela Bagletas, Shantun Kantanger, Bang Tifam, and Francisca Mulina, Sita Tamun, Jay Patel, Robert Gary Ferguson, Luigi Benedetto, Saad Samir Khalifa, Mahdi Adam, Stephen John Robinson, Ufa Adel Saleh Al Sapar, Chandra Mokhtar. Birka Bahadur Shetri. Edgar Sandida. Puspa Shetri. Shirin Pura Sahar. Avin Akram Saeed. Tul Tamon. Roberto Pino. Melissa Jane Kito. Oguljan Fuchs. Rahman Kabish. Suna Onungut. Fabrice Ruma Riza. Raider Stirosram. Yanjane Chi. Elizabeth Kinowa Saki. Safinaz Malawi. Iris Rodas. And Arnaldo Fuentes. Congratulations.
Pretty good, isn't it? Congratulations to all of you. When I went down there to hand out the certificates, only then did I realize how incredibly hot it is out here. So with your permission, I'm going to be very brief. But I do want to tell you a brief story, and it's much like the stories you have heard already, and the stories that are so amazingly told in the book. A little more than 100 years ago, two young men, boys really, saw America for the first time from a ship in New York City Harbor. These two boys, traveling alone on different ships, came to America from Eastern Europe through Ellis Island. I often wonder what they thought as they glimpsed Lady Liberty standing proudly in the harbor with her torch of freedom and opportunity held high. I wonder what they thought their futures held in this new land, forged on principles of individual rights, equality, and representative government by and for the people. Each of them settled in the coal mining region of eastern Pennsylvania, worked hard as coal miners and farmers, survived World War I, the Great Depression, and raised families. The lives of these two young men intertwined when their oldest children met, fell in love, and got married. I tell you this story because the children of these newcomers to America were my parents. You see, your story and the stories of your children and grandchildren to come is my story. As a nation of immigrants, it is the story of all of us. Today you join a new family, our American family, a family built on principles of hard work, individual freedom, tolerance, and personal responsibility. But I challenge you today to remember that you're just not responsible for yourselves. For you, as new citizens, are responsible to ensure that the ideals set forth in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the pledge which you just recited for the first time as new citizens remain firm and true. So I charge you today with not just taking care of yourselves and your families, but get involved in your community and helping other citizens continue to keep America on a course consistent with its foundational principles. Take an active role in your community, schools, and government, and understand that along with the privilege of citizenship comes the responsibility to protect, preserve, and defend the principles upon which our nation is based. That is why each of you have completed a course in American history and government. It is because now you are a part of that history, a part of that culture, and as a citizen, a part of that government. And this part is so important. You see, as a citizen, you can no longer look upon our government as some isolated entity. As a citizen, our government is made up of all of us. And each and every one of us has a vital role to play in helping to keep the promise of our great nation. Enough talking by me. I'd like to call upon any of you who would like to say a few words about what you're feeling right now as becoming a citizen of our great nation. We've got a microphone available, and I would, if any of you would like to let us know, other than to say that you're incredibly hot, I'd like you to say a few words as to how you're feeling right now. And this, I can tell you, is always the best part of this program. So, and if you don't volunteer, I'm going to call on you.